scorecards. So they see that and they're like, I want to be an A too. And there are people that have actively tried. I have an example in Southwest Missouri. She consistently gotten a B. B every time, middle B, like an 85 or 86%. And last year she came up to me and she goes, Rachel, I want to get an A on the AAP scorecard. What do I have to do? I said, well, you just got to vote with this. Well, can you tell me what bills? Nope, I'm not going to tell you ahead of time because then that's going to change it's going to change some of these bad people what they do. But call me. I will tell you what if we were to score it, what our position would be. And she did that, and we have this relationship. This year she got an A. The only thing she voted against us on for was the dairy subsidies. And we were opposed to that because we're opposed to subsidies in general for everyone. But she voted for it. That was the only thing that she didn't vote with us on. And I found that to be, that's a success story. That's where it worked. She saw her colleagues getting A's. She knew I should be getting an A too. How do I change my behavior to get that? So there are lawmakers that do the right thing. And if they aren't doing the right thing, they figure out how they can correct it so they can do the right thing. And I think that that's great. And it should be recognized and rewarded. But there are lawmakers that can I just call out your senator? Does anybody mind if I'm not
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. Because this is my segue into right to work. You all love right to work down here, right? That's my understanding from what you guys support right to work, Missouri becoming a right to work state. And everybody knows what that means. It means that you can't be forced to join a union in order to have a job. And I'll get into some more details of it. Well, your senator consistently told people before the vote in the Senate, I'm not going to vote for that. I'm a no vote. I'm not going to vote for that. To which, in my head, I'm thinking, why would you do that? Fine. Your area wants right to work. We've polled your area. We know what your constituents want. But why would you vote? Why would you publicly tell people or privately tell us, I'm going to vote no? Well, he was trying to stop the bill from ever coming up for a vote. That's what he tried. That's what your senator tried to do. And I'm going to call him out. I don't care.
Do it.
Because it makes me mad. Because that's what happens in Jefferson City. They play games. Just like they play games in Washington, D.C. And
which senator are you talking about?
Wayne Wallingford.
Okay, well, yeah, he is my senator, but that Keeley is my representative, and she's not for right to work, so you need to give her an F.
No, who's your senator? Who's your
Keeley Keeney.
No, Shelley Keeney voted yes on right to work.
Well, she didn't say she was going to vote.
She
Right,
said, I do know, she
radio.
will vote to override the governor's veto. If it gets to that, she will vote to override the governor's veto.
See, it was worth coming tonight just to hear
Yes,
that.
she will. She will vote to override the governor's veto. Don't worry about Shelley Keeney. But Wayne Wallingford, I would worry about him because he likes to play games. He had the opportunity to give Missouri employees, allow them to have paycheck protection where they can opt out of paying union dues easier than the way it currently is. He could have voted to override the governor's veto on that 3 years ago, and he didn't. So I think it's important that you know who your state senator is. And he gets C's and D's on the AFP scorecard. Check out the other scorecards. But that's my segue into right to work. Right to work is the biggest single job creator that we could pass in our state. There is not a better jobs bill that they've come across. They like to say, you know, the Boeing deal, that'll bring jobs to Missouri. Let's give the Aerotropolis thing, let's do that, that'll bring jobs to Missouri. Everybody thinks that if they just give some handouts to some big companies, that's going to magically make jobs come here in Missouri. They did that in Columbia to IBM. IBM came in, they were supposed to have 800 employees, they got all kinds of tax credits to do it. They never ever brought 800 employees into the city of Columbia. And they're now like narrowing down to basically go out of business in Columbia before these tax credits even come into full effect. So that's what tax credits do. They're not the right way to do it. But making it easier for employers to come to Missouri and set up shop so they don't have to fight through 5,000 pages of a union contract is going to make their lives easier, and it's going to make them want to come to Missouri. Missouri is in the middle of the country. have a good location. They just started a committee on ports in Missouri. And that has to do with, you know, Kansas City and St. Louis being hubs. We're not ports because we're on a waterway out there. We're ports because we're in the middle of the country, and there's a good way for us to, you know, disperse goods across our state. It would behoove companies to come here. But right to work, if you look all around the states around us, the states around us are doing great. Missouri is, I have it on the handout. Missouri is 47th in economic outlook, 42nd in economic growth. We're not in a good place. We're just not. We're on the misery index. This is a real thing to rate our happiness. We are in the bottom 10 states. I think we're 41st on the misery index. So 40 other states are happier than the people here in Missouri. The only other states that where it's worse are like Rhode Island, Connecticut, New York. I'll let you be the judge of why those might be unhappy states. But we have a lot to be happy about, I think. We have a beautiful state. We have great education for our kids to go to. But our kids, they don't want to stay here because there aren't jobs here. And if they don't want to stay here, they leave. My oldest son is a sophomore in college. He starts tomorrow. And the prospects for him to have a job here in the state are low. 18 to 34-year-olds are moving out of our state faster than any other age range are. They're going to states where there are jobs. They're going to Indiana. They're going to Tennessee. They're going to Texas. They're going to Florida. Pretty soon they'll be going to Michigan and Wisconsin. But right now, Missouri doesn't hold a lot of hope for them. They need to go where the jobs are, and the jobs are coming here. The jobs are leaving here. If it weren't for the state of Illinois, we would have a net loss of revenue of people taking their money and leaving the state. We would have a loss because those people are taking their money and going to Tennessee and Texas, and they're going to low tax states. They're also going to right to work states because that's where the jobs are. They're going to Alabama and Mississippi and Georgia and South Carolina. They're not staying in our great state because there aren't jobs here. And I don't know about you, but that means that my son, when he graduates college, he's going to start looking for jobs, and he's going to go somewhere else. He's going to move away. Some of you have already probably dealt with your kids moving away. I've never had to deal with that. And the thought of that is really scary to me because I'm going to want to go wherever he goes. Or when my other kids get bigger and they move away, I'm going to find the spot in the middle where I can be as close to all three of them as I can be. And that means I'm going to leave Missouri. And I love Missouri. I'm an Iowa farm girl, but this is my home now. But the thought that my kids are going to go somewhere else and they're going to get married and then they're going to have grandkids. And I know this is 20 years down the road, but if we don't change something now, that process is going to get sped up even faster. And your kids are going to be gone in 5 years because they're going to move somewhere where there's jobs. Or maybe your kids have already left to go somewhere where there are jobs. And you're going to follow them someday because you want to be close to them. Because I don't know that they'll come back home because there's not much to come back home to. Except a really pretty state to drive through. And I'm not saying all this to be Debbie Downer, because there is an opportunity to change something. And the unions and Democrats and, let's see, 117 minus 92 is 25 Republicans want to keep things the way they are and not change it, not change the way our state is currently operating. We're 47th. What do we have to lose? What do we have to lose? We go down to 50th? We're not far from there now. We're already scraping the bottom of the barrel. Let's try something different. Let's change the status quo, because the status quo is not working. And that's the message we've been trying to give. That's the message we've been trying to give out. We have knocked on, we have called 250,000 Missourians, 258,551 Missourians have been contacted by phone, and we've asked them what they think about right to work, to find out where they stand. Almost 74,000 doors were knocked on. This has all happened in the last 45 days.
Wow.
We have done a lot of phone calls and we've done a lot of door knocking, and that's what Americans for Prosperity does. When you think about some of the other groups, when you think of some groups, they're think tanks. They produce papers and stuff. We're a do tank. We do things. And the things that we do are we reach out to our neighbors and we talk to them. And we talk to them at the door, and we talk to them on the phone. And we find out where they stand on the issues. In the last 45 days, it's been all about right to work, because we want to change the way lawmakers feel on this issue. It's looking grim. I have to be honest. It's not looking good right now. And this may be this is the second time in my lifetime that we've had the chance to do this. The first time was before I actually lived here, and I wasn't old, and I was just a baby, if I'm being honest. And, like, literally a baby, it was 1978. Was the last time Missouri had a real chance of being a right-to-work state. And it was voted down by the people. Well, the tide is different now. Our makeup of our state is different now. We don't have manufacturing. We don't have, we have a GM plant. The Ford plant, there's a Ford plant in Kansas City, but plants have left. Chrysler has left. Jobs are leaving our state. And what can we do to change that? Let's make Missouri a right-to-work state. Let's try it. What do we have to lose? What do we have to lose? The status quo isn't working. What we're doing isn't working. All of the tax incentives in the world aren't working to bring companies to our state. So we should do something different. So that's when we went into action, and some of the things, the first time when I started working with Americans for Prosperity, I'd been on staff for 2 months, and I went to Wisconsin in 2012 and knocked on doors and told the Wisconsinites that Scott Walker's Act 10 was working. And they heard us. Those citizens heard us and acted accordingly. They kept Scott Walker in office. And then in 2012 again, we knocked on doors again to tell people that Barack Obama was failing miserably as a president. The citizens didn't hear us quite as well. So we're going to keep doing that. We did it in 2014. I knocked on doors in Iowa and I knocked on doors in Arkansas, because those are the two closest states to us, but that had an opportunity. And both in Iowa, they defeated Bruce Braley, a liberal representative who loved Bill and Hillary Clinton, and Barack Obama. They defeated him. And then they defeated Mark Pryor in Arkansas, and they defeated Kay Hagan in North Carolina, and they defeated Mark Udall in Colorado, and I can't remember the guy's name in Alaska. But we knocked on almost 2 million doors across the country last year to make that happen. And we're gearing up to do that again. We're going to continue doing it on this right-to-work issue because that's the way to do it, but that's what we do. That's how we're a do tank. Americans for Prosperity, we knock on doors and we talk to our neighbors and we call them on the phone. And we do it through phone banks. It's not fun, it's not glamorous, but it's the best way to find out how people feel on an issue, so then we can change their mind on an issue. If their mind is changeable, then we can change their mind on an issue. Because somebody might think that they love Barack Obama, that they hate Obamacare, they hate higher taxes, they hate all these other things, but they think, nope, I love Barack Obama, but I hate all these other things. So they hate all those things, so let's not talk to them about Barack Obama. Let's talk to them about all those other things and educate them on those issues, and they'll come around eventually. So that's what we've been doing. Oh wow, I talked a lot longer than I even thought possible. So I'm gonna let you guys ask me questions now, if that's okay. Yes?
Is right to work supposed to be decided in September?
Yes. And on September 16th is the veto override session, and if this happens, we will be the only country, or the only state in the country, excuse my mix-up of words, the only state in the country where we've had a Democrat governor and we've overridden his veto to make a state a right-to-work state. We have a chance to truly make history here. Not only tip the scales when it comes to our nation and be the 26th state, I would much rather go to the 25th state because that just sounds cooler, but when we become the 26th state, there is officially a majority of states that are right to work. And some of the arguments that people use on this is, well, it brings wages down. The right to work states' wages are lower than they are in non-right to work states. And my answer to that is, have you lived in California? Have you tried to buy a gallon of milk in California versus a gallon of milk here? And I have yet to see an actual example, not just somebody yapping their mouth at me saying this happened to them, allegedly. I have yet to see an actual example of someone in Indiana or Michigan or Wisconsin or Oklahoma that was making 30 bucks an hour and boom, they became right to work and suddenly they're making $10 an hour. That doesn't happen. They're lying to you. They're lying to other common sense Missourians by saying those types of things. So you hear something like that, fight back. And a lot of lawmakers their excuse is, well, the mail that comes into my office and the people that call my office are far more anti-right to work than pro-right to work. And I believe them. I believe them 100% because the passion curve on this is totally with the other side. And all the mail that comes to AFP Missouri comes to my office. And it is. It's probably 20 to 1. For every good letter I get about Americans for Prosperity, thank you for the work you're doing on right now, I get 20 vile, ugly, nasty, I can't wait till you die email, or letters in the mail from those people. It's ugly. And I like to use the hashtag tolerant left. They're anything but tolerant on a lot of these issues. And if I was a lawmaker and that was all I was seeing was the ugly, vile, nasty stuff, I'd probably not want to sway my vote either. But I think it's important that they know that if they vote right on this, we're going to be a champion of them on this issue. We're going to support them on this issue through the years. We're not just going to turn our backs on them. Because that's what they did in Wisconsin with Scott Walker and some of those other state senators that made the right move and did the right thing. It wasn't just that they came in and championed for it and then turned around and left. We're here. I'm going to stay in Missouri for hopefully 3 or 4 more years in my with Americans for Prosperity. And our activists are here, and our activists are going to thank people that do the right thing. Doesn't mean that when they do the wrong thing, we're not going to call them out for it later. But on this issue, we're going to stand by them with them. So if you do have contact with a lawmaker that doesn't know where they stand, just remind them that we're with them on this. And they need to do the right thing on September 16th. You had a question back there.
I just was curious, that mail that you get, do you have any intel whether that is organized mailings? Union meeting night, they say we want 10 of you people all to send a letter to this address that says this, or is it truly Joe Union sitting on his couch and goes, you know what, that makes me mad, I'm alright.
My mail that I get is all in response to a mailing that we sent out, so it's our mailing that they cut up and tear up and write vile, ugly things on and then mail back to me. Or it's the little door hanger we left on their door, they pull that off and they tell me, don't you ever step foot on my property or again. I'm like, okay, thanks. That's really nice of you. But Senator Paul Whelan posted on Facebook, and I found this to be quite interesting. There was a person that screens the letters to the editor. I don't know if you saw this up in Jefferson County. The lady that screens the letters to the editor at the Jefferson County News Leader or something, she wrote in the letter to the editor section that, at first I was like, I read it, and she's talking about getting caught lying. And I was like, well, what does this have to do with right to work? It was a union lady had sent 3 letters to the editor, 3 different letters to the editor, all on the same paper, all in the same handwriting, but signed with different names and different phone numbers. Like Julie Smith, Julie Jones, and Emily Smith all sent this different letter, 3 different letters, to make it look like, yes, 3 different people took the time to write a letter to the editor. And when the editor, like the lady in charge of all that, called the phone number on each one of them, the lady goes, well, the union told me I could do that. The union told me I could put 3 different letters in. then it wouldn't matter. And so that leads me to believe that yes, that's actually what's happening. It's different, it's not all the same people.
Looking at this map here, I noticed that you have a lot of positive things on the facts here. But would it be advantageous for you guys to list some of the negative things? For example, a lot of these states here are, they're all high union. A lot of them are running deficits and a lot of them are bankrupt. And they're also some of the highest taxed in the union. California, New York, New Jersey. Is that something that perhaps maybe you guys could also would find important to mention that? Because a lot of these are bankrupt. A lot of them are all high union. They have been for decades.
Yes.
And a lot of them, a lot of cities are there are bankrupt. And like I said, some of the highest taxes in the union. New York, New Jersey, California,
it's more than just, I don't want, it's more than just right to work that's going to put Missouri on the right path. It's a lot of other things in our path to prosperity that's going to put us on a better path. Because it is all of those things that you mentioned that are wrong with California. That if we're not careful, we're going to go down the path of California. The only thing that keeps Californians from being 50th on the misery index is probably the weather. Because it's not a great place to live. It's not a great place to do business.
they're billions in debt.
And the debt is
And climbing. New York,
crazy.
all of them.
It's insane to think about their debt. And Illinois is just as bad.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Illinois is the only thing that makes Missouri look good right now.
Yeah, they're taxed to death over there.
I'm sorry to our friends in Illinois. They're really great people, especially in Southern Illinois. You get up in Chicago, not so much. But in Southern Illinois, people are really nice and sweet. But bless their hearts, they make us look better. Yes.
Hey, a week and a half ago, the Swedish little girl from
Courtney, yes.
Courtney was here, and she needed a little help with knocking on doors. So, Gail and Jan and Susie and I went and walked, and we got these lovely T-shirts, and we got to meet a whole bunch of people on the right to work issue. And I think we all need to get on our emails, and we get on our phone and let Wayne know that we back the right to work. And besides that, we lost Bucor Steel to Arkansas, which is good for us because that's where my boy works. But you know, I would rather have been here.
Can I ask you what your experience was like going door to door? I know, don't talk about how spread out the doors were because it was an anomaly.
It was really,
crazy.
Spread out, and it was crazy.
But normally that's not the case. But the people you talk to, the technology, all of that.
The people said, yes, we're for right to work. It will be great. I mean, people shouldn't have to join a union in order to get a job. And most of the people say, yeah, come on in, talk to us a few minutes.
Would you do it again on another issue?
Yes.
Okay.
I found most people said they were for it too. There were maybe 3 people that were unions, and I was sharing with Jim. A couple of them, we had a conversation. They were actually really nice, and I shook one person's hand and said, well, thank you, we disagree, but we had a good conversation, and nobody said, get out the door, or I don't want to talk to you.
See, I didn't have anybody tell me that, but there were some people, some of our ladies that were going door to door up in the St. Charles area. They were in a cul-de-sac, and they had gotten out and were knocking on doors, and this big fancy Cadillac comes pulling up and blocks them into this cul-de-sac, and then tells them, I own this street, you get off of it, but he wasn't nearly as nice and ladylike as I'm being. You get out of here now, none of these people are with you, none of these people are ever going to be with you because I've already taken care of all of this business, get out now. And they're like, well, okay sir, can we please get out of our way? Get out! Only he was not being nice and kind at all. It was terrible. My question was, this was my question I wanted to say. Wow, what exactly is your job that you drive this, ginormous Cadillac that can block a bunch of ladies in? Because he was not just your average union worker. I'm pretty sure he was a union boss. And the only paychecks that get hurt by becoming a right to work state are those people's paychecks. And those people's paychecks are taking advantage of those union workers and Missouri workers. And that's wrong and that's not right. And I fully support those paychecks going now.
Asking about Jimmy Hoffa? She should have just spent him up.
A number of years back, I've done door-to-door campaigning and phone campaigning for a number of reasons. And I have found that I've gone out and talked to people about a certain object or a certain activity, and they agreed with me, and I felt good about that. But then I said, all right, we're going to see you on election day. And the response was, I hadn't voted in 15 years. I doubt seriously thought, no. And when I'm finished with the door-to-door, weeks and weeks of knocking on doors, I found that a lot of people agreed with me on what I was talking about, but a very, very small percentage of them said that they were actually going to vote. So the problem seemed to be is that we need to get the people out to vote.
Yeah.
We can convince them of all the things in the world, but if they're not going to get off their seat and go and get in the car and drive up to the voting booth and vote.
Well, and that's part of our efforts. A lot of what we do, like last year, for example, I would say last year is my best example of this. We started knocking on doors in Arkansas and Iowa, North Carolina, Colorado, Alaska, I mean all over the country. We started knocking on doors in April, which number one was too late, but we did it anyways because that's when we had our staff up and ready to go. So we started knocking on doors in April. Where we just did those conversations with people to find out where they stood on the issues so we could better educate them. And we started knocking on doors in April. And the only people, what's great about our technology is we only go and knock on the doors of people that we know should be, most likely, we're hoping that they're in that middle segment of people and we can bring them over to our side. The number one, that's what we do based on just data that's out there, consumer data about people, and then their likelihood to vote, where they fall on that scale of how often do they vote, and things like that. We're not going to go knock on somebody's door that has a 0 when it comes to voting. If they haven't voted in 15 years, that's not our first door that we knock on. We use other ways to kind of engage them and get with them. We find those people that are maybe 1s and 2s and haven't voted in a long time, so we can encourage them to get out and vote, to encourage them in those final 2 weeks that get out the vote, to say this is your civic duty, you need to go get out and vote, get out and do it. And it's going to those people. We're not going to nobody's going to contact me because I've never missed an election since I've been 18. Nobody's probably going to contact any of you to encourage you to go vote because you guys have probably already voted all the times that you can, you're not in that likelihood to not vote. So we knock on their doors. Or people that we know are with us and maybe aren't registered to vote, we send them packets in the mail about how to get registered to vote. There's a lot of things that go on behind the scenes that necessarily that I'm not involved in directly or our field directors aren't involved in directly, but things do go into those efforts to reach those people and hopefully push them down the path that we need them to be down. But some of the other things, and I've reached out to my church about that, is asking my church, can I set up, me personally, not necessarily Rachel with Americans for Prosperity, but can I ask our members if they're registered to vote? I mean, that's not a political thing to talk to your fellow members at church if they're registered to vote and register them to vote. That's not overtly a political activity, and you can do that. Ask your pastors, because those are the people, a lot of them are with us on a lot of issues. So let's get them registered to vote and encourage them to vote and do those types of things. But we do that. That was a long way to say that we try to get there. Yes?
Do you guys make endorsements of candidates? We'll start with that.
No, we do not endorse candidates. Sometimes we do encourage citizens to vote against candidates. But that comes from our board of directors because that requires us to form a special PAC and committee that files with the FEC. And we did that in several states in 2014 where we did express advocacy. But even that wasn't telling people to vote for anyone. It was telling people to vote against someone. Usually it was the status quo is usually how we do that. But we do not endorse candidates. we do score candidates and grade candidates, so that can help citizens decide how they feel about a candidate, possibly, but we don't endorse anyone. Anything? Was that? Okay. Yes.
I was for the right to work in 1978, and most Missourians were. But the way they kept it from passing was by bringing a bunch of union thugs in from all over the country. And they kept a lot of people from voting. If they found out you was going to vote for right to work, they'd do just about anything to keep you from getting to the poll.
Well, they do just about anything to keep us from just talking to people about it. So
Well,
I believe that.
Well, and I'm afraid that the same thing may happen again.
We have them, the unions were not expecting the type of response that they've received from Americans for Prosperity in Missouri. They weren't expecting us to have this kind of, we were ready to go. And they're a little behind, I think, still, because we'd been knocking on doors for 3 weeks before the first time we heard of unions canvassing neighborhoods. But the neighborhoods that they're canvassing, they're only canvassing the lawmaker neighborhoods. So lawmakers are like freaking out because they're going door to door in my neighborhood. Oh my goodness. We're contacting a lot of people all over the district to let people know how they stand on it. We're not just using scare tactics, and that's what the unions are doing. So I'm fearful that some of those scare tactics are working, because people in Jefferson County, which had been a very purple county, has become a much more red county with the election of Paul Wieland and Becky Ruth and Shane Roden and all of those. They have a new bunch of freshman Republicans, and they all just came in 2014 in that new wave, and they are all scared. They are all very nervous and very scared. And they're scared that they're going to lose their seat. And it's not just them. They aren't the only ones that are scared. Leadership's scared. And to which my response is, have a backbone, and if you're going to get voted out standing up for the right thing. Because people will remember that more than they will ever remember, ooh, you got 4 years in office instead of 2 because you were a squish. But I get a little worked up about that sometimes. But there has been studies done. Vinnie Vernuccio at the Mackinac Center in Michigan just released a study at the end of June that said there aren't electoral consequences for voting against labor. And he looked at elections in Indiana and Michigan and Wisconsin. And those lawmakers that took a principled stand and did the right thing for their state and for the citizens of that state, they won re-election. They won re-election. They did the right thing, and there weren't electoral consequences, which everyone is afraid of. People weren't voted out of office. There was one senator in Wisconsin that did get voted out of office, but he didn't get voted out of office because he voted for right to work. He got voted out of office because he was kind of a sleazy scumbag. There were lots of other issues that he had that were personal in nature that caused him to get kicked out of office. So otherwise, that is not a valid argument. So if somebody says, you hear one of the leadership people in the Missouri House make the statement, well, we're worried about, our